And what a disaster coming down. I'm 600 cones past Kilmarnock and the blue lights start. You measure the road in cones now. I think they're breeding. See, they're all stuck on top of each other, them cones. And then there's millions of them. What happens? This big sergeant come up, he says, "Are you having trouble taking off, squadron leader?" And they're always trying to smell your breath, the police. He stuck his head through the window to smell my breath. 42 quid for a new window. Then a bird shit in the windscreen. I said, "I'm never taking you out again anyway." I tell you. Would you like a quick flashback? You'll need an enlargement. I walks into Ladbrokes this afternoon. Who's standing in front of me putting a line on? Salman Rustie. I said, "What are you doing in here?" He said, "I'm not going into Mecca." There's a woman, she said, "You're thinking of flying away on an exotic holiday." She said, "That's right, that's marvellous. How did you know that?" She says, "I can tell everything. Don't fly. The plane will crash. Take a cruise." And she went on a cruise and the boat sank. A bloody aeroplane hit it. I'm telling you, that Channel 4 is to blame, because I'm adverts about that. Oh, don't bend for a friend. Have you seen it? 8 million quid. I could have done it for 2 quid for them, that advert. That bloody government, that's happening. That Malcolm Rifkin, he's sniffing glue, that Malcolm Rifkin. Every time he comes on the telly, he sees hundreds of new jobs, Malcolm Rifkin. I've never seen it. Tell you, when my old man got paid off for Lafferty when the building firm collapsed, he was with Lafferty. When they were going around interviewing him, they're all saying, "Oh, I hope I get another job now." I went out to his building site, he's playing bingo with a cement mixer. Eyes down, your next house is a flyover. Oh, I round the other night to see the old lady. Walks into the living room ceiling, 42 feet high. I said, "What's the big idea?" He said, "Your mother wanted 2 rooms knocked into one." It's not right in the head. Out of the football Saturday. Oh, we went to Dunfermline on Saturday. I'm not trying to mix it, but this is the truth. No, honestly. And Terry Butcher's run. You come down steps on Dunfermline Park, and Terry Butcher sneezed. And Mo Johnston says, "Bless you," and soon he says, "You trying to start fucking trouble, Johnson?" No, she wasn't well the other morning. She's always not well anyway, but she says, "I'm not." It's a varicose vein thing. She says, "It's lurping, always lurping." "You'll need to go to Asda for me," and I'm walking through Asda. And I'm just coming up to the checkout and they've got a condom display in Asda. I said, "Good God, what's the world coming to?" And years ago when I was going out for the weekend, and you'd have walked into Boots and just signalled, you know. And the wee man knew right away too. He always stuck him in the envelope and he got him, that was you for the week. Unless he was in his dinner break and his wife was serving, well, that was a ball of the slates. Right? She said, "Give us a tube of Gibbs SR." I'm still using the Gibbs SR. And they've got all these condoms in Asda, musical ones, and coloured ones, and flavoured ones. I like the lemon one. You come in the Jiffy and the lemon one. They're even recycling motor car tyres to make them now. You get 365 out of a good year. I took a packet anyway, just in case. I stuck it on top of the Wonderloaf and I'm going through the checkout. And of course, this smart bugger's using the bleeper. There's no prices, it's a bleeper. No. And it wouldn't bleep. Well, She stands up and she's waving a packet of condoms up the supermarket. Miss McGilvray, how much are the condoms? There must have been 600 women behind me with trolleys. And she's got the price list at the other end. Which ones are they, Singa? Is it the sensitive or the black shadow? She said, that's the Night Rider. I know that one. It's not the Night Rider. She said, there must be an identification mark on it, Senga. She said, well, I don't know. It's got the bit in the end for putting your foot on when you're taking it off. I will never go into Asda as long as I live. I'm going into Safeways next week. I'm staying out of that Asda. Oh, embarrassing. It's not safe. Then we come out of the match on Saturday. Mr. Abie, you know, okay, Mr. Abie, coming back to the house for your tea. Takes us all back to Boswell. $1.99 a head he charges for his tea. A beautiful house. One of them Barrett Premier houses with a turnstile at the front door. 50 pence to get in. Except for Mark Walters, he limboed under. He got in for nothing. Well, a beautiful house, so he's got all that suppository furniture and everything. You have to put it up yourself, but it's beautiful. Got the bidet in the bathroom. Oh, you don't need to do handstands in the shower, do you? His wee boy come up, he says, Dad, gonna lend us 50 pence. He said, 30 pence? What do you want 20 pence for? And then we're sitting watching. He says, you'll need to watch Sports Scene, because he was dying to see who won the golf, you see. And that's Peter Allis, come on, does the golf. I don't know how they get away. He said, Ballesteros has had this morning. He never showed it, they just announced it. And Nick Faldo has dropped one at the ninth. Then Archie McPherson comes on doing the football, him with the orange wig with a hole in it, have you seen it? And it was a European preview. Inter Milan, it's number 7 for Inter Milan, breaking over the halfway. Number 7's name, Buck Devano. It's Buck Devano on the ball, breaking over the halfway line. Don't know how they get away with it. Then it showed you the Jamaican bobsleigh team. They crashed on the first bend, changing the cassette over. See them athletes, they're all into these steroids to build them up. That Fatima Whitbread, she was the same. She went to the doctor, she said, I've been taking these tablets to improve my throwing and it's bringing hairs out in my chest. The doctor said, lots of women get hairs on their chest. She says, they're right down in my balls. You're a good crowd, I can tell a good crowd. What a marvellous audience you are. Then the Duke phoned me up, the Duke of Edinburgh, you know. Would I go down and see the Mrs., you know, Mrs. Edinburgh. So I went down to London. Because they're having trouble one, you may be reading the paper, she split with her husband because she's got the toy boy, you see. Wouldn't fancy if it her toy boy. Princess Anne, permission to mount, ma'am. Oh. Well, I went up to the palace, I rang the bell, and it was Princess Anne who opens the door, you see, so I said, is your ma in? I was at my granny's. Tell it, you're not safe walking the streets. I went in the other night to get the Chinese carry-out to take home for the supper. And this bugger leaps at me, he says, what do you want? So I says, could you make us a that's... he's looking up the menu for Datsun. Making a chicken curry and chips. Well, the sliding doors come open like, oh, in the kitchen. And about 6 heads come out. What the fuck? They hate making chips. It's rice, because they grow the rice and they palm it off on you. That's too much. Bloody right. I hate that, right? Makes you constipated rice. Oh. That's why they've got slanty eyes, you know, them chinky. And you come home to all the abuse, you get no thanks for it. I was getting my pyjamas on when I come in last night. I always put my pyjamas on. You never know when there's going to be a fire. And I walks up with it and I like peeks into the bedroom, you see, you know, just to see what the situation was, you know how you... And she sprawled across the top. We've got this water bed. Well, her side froze up, so she's up. The Dead Sea, I call it. But she's sprawled across the top. She's got the see-through leggy thing on, you know. I could see the string vest under it. The light was shining. And you know, you're surveying the situation, wondering what your chances are, you know. She said, "Don't touch my left leg when you get in, my varicose veins looping." I'm just about... Did you look at that spin dryer? I told you it was leaking. You get no encouragement. She has a drawer full of gadgets. The loop, spring, the coil. I mean, it's like an into bed with Suzuki in there. You'd be better off with a Suzuki. You can kick-start a Suzuki. You couldn't kick-start her. I said, you don't even smile when you're having a climax. She says, you're never... And what did we have? We had 3 or 4 days of good weather just the other week. There, what did you walk into every night from your work? You're in, I've made you a wee salad again. See corned beef, see somebody cracked a whip, I'd break in that girl. Corned beef, see? Oh, I hate being in that hospital. Oh, detest it. There's always somebody worse than yourself when you look about you. Oh, the last time I was removed the strap. I don't like bumming about my war exploits, but seriously. And this wee guy beside me is a wee Jewish fella. He just had the big operation, you know, in the way that... And he screamed the whole night long in the hospital. He kept everybody awake. Oh, my birdie, oh, my birdie. And there's a wee Indian nurse coming round the ward. She says, "What's the problem, please?" He said, "It's my birdie." She said, "Oh, happy birthday to you." The Irish guy's talking. He says, "Paddy, do you remember the night you and I made love to Teresa O'Flaherty?" He said, "Jesus, I remember that. What about it, mate?" He said, "Well, she's just had twins and mine died." There's a couple that met through, all you ladies will remember this and you'll know about it. It's in all them women's own magazines. There's a thing called Dateline, and you send away your picture and all that, and they match up on the computer with people that's got the same interest as yourself. Find romance and true happiness through Dateline. That's the big advert. And this couple had been writing to each other through Dateline. They'd seen each other and they really liked each other, but they'd never met, because they lived far away, and just kept writing and falling in love. They would say wee things like wee PS's, you know. She would write to him, you know, at the end of the letter, PS, a big jawelly and things like that. You know the way you say wee things when you know somebody well enough. You know? She would write back like to him, and he would write back to her, you know, "I love you, darling. PS, do you fart getting into the bath?" We affect. And he had a wee affliction, but his feet used to sweat, but he never mentioned it. I mean, odor eaters used to say, oh, for fuck's sake, we're not going in there. He's a prick. And she had bad breath, but she never mentioned it. And they just kept writing, and he finally plucked up courage. He says, would you like to marry me? I'll just meet you that morning, because we'll get married and we'll go to Blackpool for our honeymoon. And she wrote back and says, I love you too, yes I will. And he's in, and he's got cans of this spray stuff, and he's steeping his feet in Dettol for weeks before it, you know. The scrubbing brush out, scrubbing them, but they're still stinking. And she's got all the gadgets down her throat, and she'd go, and the paper used to curl of the wall, you know. She could beat that Black & Decker electric stripper right out of the kitchen. So they met that day and they're talking to each other, you know, and she's talking to him like that, and he's trying to stand with the wind blowing this way to blow the... And we get married and up to the hotel room, and they're getting changed and all that and getting ready, and he says, darling, let me kiss you. And he went, she said, I've got a confession. She said, no, you've eaten one of my socks. There was a fellow went into the job centre. He said, I'm looking for a job. He said, I've been off work for ages. The guy said, well, there's nothing. He said, I'll take anything. He said, I'm desperate. He said, I need to get a job. And this is murder. This has been on the brew. He says, it's social hot. He says, I'll tell you what, he says, would you be interested in, he said, in a couple of weeks' time we've got the Miss World contest starting, he says, and you know, as the girls sidewalk and they walk out in front of the cameras, we need someone to make sure that they're all neat and everything's tucked in. If there's any wee hairy bits sticking out, you just take them off with a big razor. He said, that sounds oh, I said, I'm interested in that. He says, oh, yes. The guy says, well, you'll need to go to Carlisle. He says, how's that? He says, well, that's the end of the queue.